you state your name, please?
Florence Horzepa.
And again, for the record, would you state what your occupation is and how long you've been so occupied?
I'm an investigator with the Volusia County Sheriff's Department, assigned to the Major Case Unit. Been in that capacity for approximately 5 years.
Your Honor, may the witness continue to testify under oath from the previous swearing? Officer Horzepa, in your investigation of homicide involving Richard Mallory, you indicated that you took a oral and tape statement from the defendant, Aileen Wuornos, correct?
That's correct.
Would you again return to the facts and circumstances of that? And I asked you if your testimony earlier, which was limited only to reference to the Mallory killing, if that was the time that you took statements concerning other homicides as well.
That's correct.
And
objection to the homicide, Your Honor. That's the ultimate issue.
Overruled.
I think, again, for clarity, was Ms. Wuornos advised of her rights in your presence before she gave the statements about which you're about to testify?
Yes, she did.
And can you tell the jury, please, what rights she was advised of?
She was advised of her Miranda rights. They were given to her from a written card.
And to your recollection, you recall the rights of which she was advised?
Yes, sir. She was advised that she had the right to remain silent. Anything that she said could be used against her in the court of law. She also had the right to an attorney and have that attorney present before any questioning if she wished. If she wished to have a lawyer and could not afford one would be appointed to her without cost. And she also had the right to stop answering any questions until she spoke to an attorney.
All right, sir. When and where were those rights given to her?
That would have been on January 16th, 1991. That was at the branch jail, Volusia County.
Did she acknowledge that she understood each of those rights as they were given to her?
Yes, she did.
And did she indicate that she was willing to waive those rights before she made a statement?
Yes, she did.
Did there come a time when an attorney was actually summoned at her request and he had also advised her and talked to her about giving a statement?
Yes, sir.
Is this that same sequence that you're talking about that you testified about earlier?
Yes, sir.
Again, did anyone in your presence or to your knowledge threaten or coerce or intimidate her in giving a statement?
No, sir.
Did you or anyone to your knowledge or in your presence offer her any inducement, benefit, or reward for giving a statement?
No, sir.
Now, how long before she gave this January 16th statement was it that she had been arrested?
She had been arrested on January 9th.
And to your knowledge, had she remained in jail between January 9th and January 16th?
Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, was she under the influence of any alcoholic beverages at the time she gave the statement on January 16th?
No, sir.
Was she under the influence of any drugs or drugs?
None to my knowledge.
Did she appear to be coherent and understand what was going on?
Yes, sir.
With regard to her attorney, did he advise her to go ahead and talk to the police?
No, sir.
What did he tell her?
He advised her it would be of her best interest not to speak to us.
Did she follow that advice?
No, sir.
Did she go ahead and give a statement?
Yes, sir.
All right, sir. Did she tell you with regard to the death of David Spears, did you get any information concerning that?
Yes, sir.
Could you tell the jury, please, in essence, what she told you?
We had shown her a photograph of Mr. Spears. Ms. Wuornos saw the photograph and advised us that she couldn't make an identity. We also showed her numerous photographs of Mr. Spears' vehicle, which was a Dodge pickup truck, white in color. She did advise that she did identify that particular truck. She said that she knew it because she had seen a rope that was attached to the steering wheel, and also that there was a radio that had been in that particular truck that she had taken out of it. She advised that when she met Mr. Spears, they'd gone off into the woods in reference to attempting to make money for sex. While they were in the woods, Ms. Wuornos advised that she shot Mr. Spears as he was standing next to the tailgate of his particular pickup truck. At that time, Mr. Spears, being shot, attempted to run to the driver's side of his pickup truck to get into his side where the steering wheel was in an attempt to drive away. Ms. Wuornos advised that she ran over to the opposite side, the passenger side, and shot another round at Mr. Spears, shooting him again.
Your Honor, for the record, the detective is looking at a document. If we could just identify or identify what it is. Sure. Thanks. Your Honor, this is a synopsis like the one where the detective previously testified. We do not have a copy of that synopsis.
Like one?
We'd love one, Judge, but we could wait till he's through and do it at that time.
So she said she shot him a second time when he was trying to get in the truck.
That's correct.
Did she indicate whether he was trying to get in the driver's door or the passenger door?
Trying to get into the driver's door.
And did she indicate where she was shooting from?
From the opposite side, passenger side.
Please continue.
Ms. Wuornos advised that she then crawled into the actual truck and she shot Mr. Spears again as he was backing away from her. Ms. Wuornos advised that she thought that she shot Mr. Spears 3 times, and she advised that she might have shot him again one more time just to make sure that he died.
All right, sir. Did you ask her about the homicide of Charles Carskadden?
Yes, sir.
Did you tell the jury, please, what she told you about that?
We showed her 5 photographs of Mr. Carskadden's vehicle, which was a brown Cadillac 2-door, and she advised that she recalled that particular vehicle, and Ms. Wuornos referred to Mr. Carskadden as the drug dealer guy and the man with the .45. Ms. Wuornos propositioned him reference to sex for money and took him to a spot off of 301 to do their deal. Ms. Wuornos advised that during this particular time that she shot Mr. Carskadden repeatedly while he was in the back seat of his vehicle. Ms. Wuornos also advised that she had shot Mr. Carskadden over 9 times. And then she got pissed when she found Mr. Carskadden's .45. She then went ahead and reloaded her revolver and she shot him again. Ms. Wuornos advised that she then went through the victim's wallet, hands, pockets, and she had complained that Mr. Carskadden only had $20 on him and that she wasn't going to get any more money than that. After Ms. Wuornos shot Mr. Carskadden, she went ahead and dumped his body in another location, fearing that someone may have gone ahead and heard the numerous shots that had been fired before that.
Your Honor, not to interrupt with 2 running objections to note for the record, the Williams rule-related one and then the previous objection you stated when the detective began testifying as to the statements themselves. Yes. Thank you, Judge. And I assume, Your Honors, your previous ruling and the prior trial court's previous ruling. Thank you, Judge.
All right, sir. Did she indicate what she did with Mr. Carskadden's property?
Yes, sir. She had taken the vehicle, some personal property, including the .45, and she had pawned that .45.
All right, sir. With regard to the deceased, Peter Sims, did she tell you how that killing took place?
Yes, sir. On that one, she told us that this was the time that she had told Ty Moore that the vehicle that they were in had belonged to a murder victim, and that Ty Moore was caught by surprise in reference to that, and that basically she called Ms. Wuornos crazy.
All right. In what context was that conversation, according to Ms. Wuornos, going on? Where were they and what was going on?
They were in Marion County on, I believe it was on Highway 40, and the car had just been wrecked.
All right,
And
sir.
they were attempting to get out of the car.
All right. What else did she tell you about the death of Mr. Sims?
She referred to Mr. Sims as the Christian guy. Said that he picked her up on I-95 and they were going to an unknown location in Georgia. She advised that the victim was nude and he had a sleeping bag with him. She advised that they were going into the woods, and at that particular time she brought her purse with her, which contained her .22 caliber handgun. And she had said that I'm not going to give him an opportunity to rape me. Ms. Wuornos then pulled the gun on Mr. Sims. Mr. Sims attempted to get the gun away from Ms. Wuornos. Ms. Wuornos was able to obtain the gun and shot immediately and as fast as she could at Mr. Sims, and said that she always aimed for the torso area of the body, the center mass of the body. Also, while shooting Mr. Sims, Ms. Wuornos advised that the thought that she had while she was shooting him was, I don't really want to go ahead and do this, but I have to so you can't tell and I won't get caught. At that time, Ms. Wuornos said that she took between $300 and $400 in cash from Mr. Sims' suitcase and went through his property later on and realized that he had a bunch of Bibles and things of that nature, and that's why she had gone ahead and referenced to him as the Christian guy.
Is this time she indicated what her concerns were about getting caught or possible exposure on the road or what have you? Or was that at a later time?
Objection to the form of the question.
I'm trying not to lead. Was there further discussion with her about Mr. Sims in particular, about her concerns about getting caught and why that was a concern?
I don't recall. I know that she went ahead and during these conversations, she had made statements to that effect. The fact that she basically, it was witness elimination in order that...
Objection to the characterization.
Are those your words, sir?
Yes, sir.
Rephrase your answer.
Was the word witness elimination was used by you asking the question, but was it agreed by Ms. Wuornos that that was the purpose after you used that word?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, please continue.
That was basically what she had told me about Mr. Sims. He had also, too, that she advised that she had taken his particular vehicle, a 1988 Pontiac Sunbird, and also some personal property of his.
All right, sir, with regard to Troy Eugene Burris, what did she tell you about that killing? I'm sorry, let's stay on Mr. Sims for just a few more moments. Sure. Did she indicate to you or show you a spot on a map where the body of Mr. Sims was left?
We did show her a map, and she attempted to locate for us an area where she thought he might be up in the Georgia, South Carolina area.
All right, and that would have been along the interstate?
That's correct.
I would, may I approach the witness, Your Honor, for a moment? I'd ask you to look at Exhibit 42 in evidence. And does the interstate to which she refers appear on this map?
Yes, sir.
And could you step down and, may Your Honor, demonstrate to the jury the interstate along which she said she dropped Mr. Sims' body, or at which she killed him?
north in here on I-95 and going north up into Georgia. Here's the border, Georgia border, up in Georgia.
Your Honor, may the witness fix a sticker up in that area. Please have it, please.
I-95.
Your Honor, may I just continue the witness while we find the last one? To your knowledge, has Mr. Sims' body yet been recovered?
No, sir.
Now let's go to Troy Eugene Burris. What did she tell you about that killing?
She remembered Mr. Burris as being the sausage truck guy, and she advised us that at that time she met up with him. They went off into the woods in reference to money for sex, and that Mr. Burris offered $10 for sex, and there was an argument that ensued in reference to that. Ms. Wuornos obtains her gun, and after a struggle, she shoots Mr. Burris as he's backing up away from her. Mr. Burris is struck somewhere in the torso area. With that, Mr. Burris turns and begins to run away, and he's shot in the back by Ms. Wuornos. Ms. Wuornos advised me that Mr. Burris is dressed, but Ms. Wuornos at this particular time is nude. And Ms. Wuornos also advised that she took the truck that Mr. Burris had, also the money, which was contained in a clipboard that he had for his routes. It was approximately $310, and threw some of his other items away, and then took the truck and moved it out of the area and parked it along one of the major highways in Marion County.
Did she say anything to Mr. Burris when she shot him?
Yes, sir. She said that he was a fucking bastard.
And did she indicate what he was doing at the time she said that and shot him?
He had been running away and had been shot in the back. To my knowledge, he was on the ground.
All right. With regard to Charles Humphreys, what did she tell you about that killing?
She was shown two photographs of a similar badge that Mr. Humphreys had, and she took a look at the badges, and she felt that they appeared to be the same type that Mr. Humphreys had. She said that she knew him as the cop, and that she thought that he had a fake badge. She said that she had met up with Mr. Humphreys on County Road 44, propositioned him for some sex for money, and had an argument again over the payment for the sex. At this particular time, both Ms. Wuornos and Mr. Humphreys are standing outside of the vehicle, and Mr. Humphrey has his briefcase, which is also outside of the vehicle. Excuse me. Ms. Wuornos advised that she went at that time, she pulled the gun, and she shot Mr. Humphreys twice in the torso area, with Mr. Humphreys staggering back and tripping over a grill of some type that's sticking up out of the ground. Ms. Wuornos advised that Mr. Humphreys is able to get back onto his feet. Ms. Wuornos advised that she shoots him again. Ms. Wuornos then advised that at that particular time that she felt sorry for Mr. Humphreys because he was gurgling. She said that she then went ahead and shot Mr. Humphreys in the head to go ahead and put him out of his misery. Ms. Wuornos then went ahead and shot Mr. Humphreys an additional time. She advised that she went ahead and took Mr. Humphreys' wallet and keys from him, and also took the license plate off of Mr. Humphreys' vehicle, and told us later on during the statement where that particular license plate had been discarded.
All right. Did she indicate whether or not there's any bumper stickers or anything like that she disposed of?
It was determined that she had gone ahead and driven south in Mr. Humphrey's car, and that a bumper sticker that said Troopers Association had been in fact pulled off that particular car, and it was thrown away, and it was found on October 13th of 1990 in Lake County off of US 27 on Boggy Marsh Road.
All right, the seventh victim, Walter Gino Antonio, did she tell you how that killing took place?
Yes, sir. She was shown 2 photographs of Mr. Antonio's vehicle, which was a 1979 Pontiac Grand Prix, maroon 2-door in color. She advised that she did identify that particular car. She described Mr. Antonio as an older fella and that he was a little short guy. She also advised that she solicited him for money through sex, and Ms. Wuornos advised of Mr. Antonio that he seemed to only want a free piece of ass. Ms. Wuornos advised that she had pulled her gun and that she and Mr. Antonio struggled over that weapon, and that's when the first shot was fired. Mr. Antonio at that time falls to the ground, and he gets up and he begins to run away. At that time, Ms. Wuornos advised that she then went and shot him right in the back. Ms. Wuornos then calls Mr. Antonio a bastard, shoots him again. Ms. Wuornos then shoots victim again in the back, but near the head. Ms. Wuornos kept Mr. Antonio's money, some of his property, throwing some of the items away, which also included Mr. Antonio's dentures, which had been in the vehicle. Ms. Wuornos advised that she also took Mr. Antonio's license plate from the car, put that in the trunk, and she ended up abandoning that particular car near Scottsdale in Brevard County.
Did she give you any general statements where she talked about the killings kind of as a group as to what her motives were, or what the interactions were between the parties?
Yes, sir. On the first particular tape, when she had been originally read her rights prior to the public defender coming, she was just talking to us without any interference from us at all. She made several comments. One of them was that she advised that she wasn't going to let anybody skip out on the money that she had been working for. She also had stated that when somebody would hassle her, she would respond by saying, "Don't fuck with me." She also said that she didn't know why she did it, but that when anybody would hassle her, she would go ahead and whip out her gun and she would go ahead and give it to them. She also advised in reference to all the victims that when they were dead, it didn't really bother her.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Because they were older. They probably didn't have any body anyways. She said that they were old, that their father and mothers were probably deceased, so why go ahead and worry about it? She also stated that...
Did she indicate that she was purposely selecting older men?
She had stated...
Did she indicate the age group of men that she was selecting as partners?
Objection, Your Honor.
Yes, sir. She advised that the guys that she dealt with were 37 years of age and up.
What else did she give you in the way of kind of a generic, general wrong statements?
She told us at one point that she said in reference to the men that she would. She stated that I just turned around and I did my fair play before I would get hurt. She also advised us that she used the same gun for all of the killings, and she also stated that she had killed 6 people. She said maybe it was self-defense, but maybe it was stupid. She also advised that when she would shoot someone, that she shot as fast as she could, and that she always went for the midsection so that she knew that she shot him. She also advised that she killed some of the victims because she believed that at times they were not going to pay her for services. Ms. Wuornos also advised that some of the victims were killed because they tried to get free ass, and also so that my particular phraseology of witness elimination, so that she could keep hustling and that the victims that she killed deserved what they got. She also said during a conversation with me in reference to the victim's personal property that it was a fact of final revenge for keeping that particular property that they owned. She also stated that when she shot the victims, that she definitely shot them to let them die, and that she believed in her head that she was going to be attacked, but it never happened. Also, during a conversation between us, we had talked about the killings, and I had asked her if having the gun and having the control of the situation, if she liked that particular part of being in control, and she said that she did.
All right. With regard to the flow of the conversation, when Ms. Wuornos was giving you these statements, were they as concise and neatly organized as you described in the present time?
No, sir.
All right. How did the conversation go when Ms. Wuornos was being interviewed?
They would ramble, especially during the first tape, because she was doing all the talking. There wasn't any dialogue between us. She would go from talking somewhat about some of the cases to the fact that, where she advised that she was almost harmed, almost hurt, things like that. And then she would revert back saying that these men deserved it. And then she would tell me about the fact that she had had customers in excess of 250,000 men, things like that.
How long did this interview ultimately last, approximately?
I believe it was a little over 3 hours.
Is there interaction between her and another officer throughout the interview as well as yourself?
Yes, sir.
Who would that be?
That was Investigator Munster.
Where is he from?
Marion County Sheriff's Office.
Did he sometimes, in effect, start a new line of questioning, maybe in what seemed like a new direction?
Yes, sir.
Different direction?
Yes, sir.
How have you been able to consolidate and compile this information so that you can testify here today? What did you do? What was your process?
Basically, I went, after reviewing the actual tapes itself, I went back to the transcripts, went back page by page, and based on the information that I had on the other homicides, while going through each one of the pages, went ahead and identified through items that she told me about, matched them up to the particular person.
She used the number of 6 people that she killed. How many people did she ultimately provide you information on how to kill?
7.
John, may I have just a moment?
Yes, sir.
John, may we offer some evidence for the officer to look at this time?
Yes, sir.
I'd ask you to look at photo number 72. I'm sorry, there's a different photograph I'm trying to show you. Photograph 73, and ask if she identified that particular vehicle.
Yes, sir.
And whose vehicle was that, please?
These are the photographs of David Spears' pickup truck.
Your Honor, may I Staff her here temporarily. She identified that as the truck Mr. Spears was driving when she killed him?
That's correct.
All right, I would ask you to look at, with regard to Mr. Carskadden, the photographs showing his vehicle. Is she shown those or smaller versions of those photographs?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, those are exhibits 80, 81, and 79, 80, and 81. She said that was the vehicle Mr. Carskadden was driving when she killed him?
That's correct.
This is exhibit N 6 times. Did you show her that photograph? Was that shown in your presence to her?
Yes, sir.
And that was in discussing the homicide of Charles Humphreys?
Yes, sir.
Tell me, we have this item marked in evidence. Yes. I'd ask you to look at Exhibit 98, which is Mr. Antonio's vehicle. Did she identify that vehicle?
Yes, she did.
Did she say that was the vehicle that Mr. Antonio was driving at the time she killed him?
That's correct.
Your Honor, that is Exhibit 98 in evidence. May I have this?
Yes, sir.
And finally, Exhibits 34, 39, 36, 37 and 38, 12, 40, and 35. These are all in evidence, Mr. Mallard. These are the photographs you showed her concerning the killing of Richard Mallard, the man for whom she's on trial here today.
Yes, sir.
At the time you interviewed her, you didn't have photographs of all the dead men, did you?
No, sir.
In fact, you still don't. Strike that question. Your Honor, excuse me. May I have just one more moment?
That's where all of
Your Honor, may I have the witness fix now the 4 to the last direction that Mr. Sims' vehicle was seen traveling? Your Honor, we have no further questions to the witness.
I'm sorry.
Has this been marked?
Yes.
Let me show the counsel, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor.
That the item be received.
Other than the continued.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
That's all going.
You recognize the photographs are represented by 6 O's. And I'll ask you to show those to Ms. Wuornos at the time she was interviewed.
Yes, sir.
And whose vehicle was that?
That was Mr. Spears.
And she talked about a rope in connection with a radio in there. Do you see that in the photograph?
Yes, sir.
She particularly identified that as one of the characteristics of why she knew that was the same vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Did she say what she did with the radio?
Took it out of the vehicle.
Now we have to have the exhibit marked in evidence.
That be received, marked by proper number.
Rope is on the other page, on the other side. May we publish the exhibit, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
And also, publish this exhibit, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, please, while the jury is viewing evidence, we'd offer into evidence 4 death certificates. the death certificate of Charles Barskadden, David Spears, Troy Eugene Burris, and Charles Humphreys.
We would object, Your Honor, that they're cumulative, they lack relevancy, and also the prior objection we discussed. And there's no predicate.
That had to be received.
Thanks, Judge. And you did not show her a chart like this with all these little markings on it, right?
No, sir.
In fact, when you were talking to her, who is the person between yourself and Investigator Munster, who was it that primarily was questioning her about these other cases, other than the Mallory case?
Investigator Munster.
Your focus was on Mallory, was it not?
Yes, sir.
And prior to coming to court today, you prepared certain synopses that were relevant to your testimony, correct?
Yes, sir.
And on those synopses, you have a name at the top of each one?
Yes, sir.
And the name pertains to one of the cases that the state asked you about.
That's correct.
You also had one the other day when you talked about Mr. Mallory.
Yes, sir.
And that, you testified on direct examination, was a synopsis that you prepared based on your interaction with Ms. Wuornos and your knowledge of these cases.
Yes, sir.
And you made an outline for yourself.
Yes, sir.
And that was to assist you with your testimony.
Yes, sir.
Did you prepare that by yourself or with the assistance of the state attorney's office?
That was prepared by myself.
You did that on your own, you sat down, you typed it out?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you withdrawn, did you also bring the transcript of Ms. Wuornos' interaction with yourself and Investigator Munster here to court today?
Yes, sir.
Do you have those transcripts with you?
Yes, sir.
When you were testifying as to the synopses, you were testifying as to information that you listed in those documents, correct?
Yes, sir.
When you were going through those synopses with Mr. Tanner, you didn't say anything about what Ms. Wuornos said about Tyria Moore during her interaction with yourself and Sergeant Munster. You recall that? You didn't mention Ty.
I mentioned reference to the vehicle, Mr. Sims.
What was the first thing that Ms. Wuornos told you when you and Sergeant Munster went to interview her in reference to Ty Moore? You feel free to look at tape 1.
Do you have a particular page you'd like me to look at?
Sure. Actually, let me just read it to you. Tape 1. Page 5 is a good example. Middle of the page, Ms. Wuornos says, "I think this is the best thing for me to do, and I don't want my girlfriend in trouble because she didn't do anything. Even if she knew, most of the times I would tell her shit off the wall when I'm drunk." Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
In fact, throughout the statements, Ms. Wuornos indicated to you and Sergeant Munster that her agreeing to be interviewed by yourself and to provide you with statements was to clear Tyria Moore, did she not?
She advised me that she wanted to go ahead and talk to us because she was guilty.
Did she? That's not responsive to my question. Move to strike, Your Honor.
Objection. Thank you, Frank. I don't think you said that.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Did she, in fact, tell you throughout the statements that she was talking to you in order to clear Tyria Moore?
Yes, sir.
She told you that in the beginning.
Yes, sir.
She told you that in the middle.
Yes, sir.
She told you that in the end.
Correct.
She told Sergeant Munster that in the beginning.
Yes, sir.
She told Sergeant Munster that in the middle.
We were together the entire time.
And she told him that at the end.
Yes, sir.
She said it throughout.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever ask her why? Why she was saying that?
No, sir.
Did Sergeant Munster ever ask her why she was saying that?
I don't recall.
You were aware of the fact that prior to Ms. Wuornos talking to yourself and Sergeant Munster, Tyria Moore had been placed in a hotel.
Yes, sir.
She had been placed there by law enforcement officers.
Yes, sir.
Sergeant Munster included, correct?
Yes, sir.
Investigator Thompson included.
Yes, sir.
Yourself included.
No, sir.
Okay, you did not place her in the hotel.
No, sir.
These other fellows did.
Yes, sir.
And Rosemary Giansanti from FDLE were also involved in placing her in the hotel. You were aware of that.
Yes, sir.
And you were aware of the fact that Tyria Moore sent a note to Ms. Wuornos.
Yes, sir.
That note sending procedure was requested by law enforcement. You were aware of that, were you not?
Yes, sir.
And that note asked Ms. Wuornos to call the hotel room. You were aware of that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Before you went and interviewed Ms. Wuornos, you had taken a statement from Tyree Moore, had you not?
Yes, sir.
And that was with Sergeant Munster, correct?
Yes, sir.
That was at the, where was that? The Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir. Operations Center.
In Volusia County.
Yes, sir.
And Sergeant Munster had taken a statement from Tyree Moore, correct? That was up north somewhere.
Yes, sir.
And you were aware of that?
Yes, sir.
And Ms. Moore was cooperating with you, was she not?
Yes, sir.
By you meaning law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
And Ms. Moore received calls from Ms. Wuornos, correct?
Yes, sir.
You were aware of that?
Yes, sir.
Do you know when the first call came through?
No, sir, I don't recall.
Do you know when Ms. Moore came down to Florida with law enforcement?
I believe it was the 13th, but
13th. And you spoke to Ms. Wuornos on the 16th.
that's correct.
During that, whatever 3 or 4 day time period that it was, Ms. Moore and Ms. Wuornos were speaking to each other on the phone. You were aware of that, were you not?
Yes, sir.
And during those telephone conversations, Ms. Moore was in a room with law enforcement officers, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were aware of the fact that those tape-recorded communications were being tape-recorded.
Yes, sir.
And Ms. Moore agreed to that procedure.
Yes, sir.
You were aware of the fact that Ms. Moore agreed to follow the suggestions of law enforcement officers during that recording procedure, were you not?
No, sir.
Did you ever speak to Sergeant Munster as to what he told Ms. Moore?
No, sir, I didn't discuss those tapes at that time.
You never spoke to Officer Giansanti or Sergeant Munster as to the instructions they gave Ms. Moore as to what she should do with Ms. Wuornos when she calls on the telephone?
No, sir.
Were you aware of the fact that Ms. Moore cried during their discussions on the telephone?
No, sir.
Did you ever come in contact with the tapes of those telephone conversations, you yourself?
Yes, sir. Later on, I reviewed them later on.
You had them in your hands?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever play them?
Yes, sir.
Did you listen to them?
Yes, sir.
So you know she cried on those tapes, right?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Moore cried
That's correct.
to Ms. Wuornos.
Yes, sir.
She said law enforcement was coming down on her. You were aware of that, were you not?
I believe it was they had been up to see her family.
Had been up to see her family and she was worried over that.
Yes, sir.
And you were aware of the fact that Ms. Moore's goal was to have Ms. Wuornos speak to law enforcement,
Yes, sir.
to clear her, to clear Ms. Moore. That's what Ms. Moore wanted. You were aware of that, were you not?
As far as my particular investigation, when I spoke to Ms. Moore, even on the 15th when I took the tape recording, I advised her that she was at that time a suspect. And before I took her statement, she was advised of her Miranda rights.
By the way, I'll get back to it in a minute, but speaking of Ms. Moore as a suspect, have you ever advised her that she is not a suspect?
No, sir.
Has any law enforcement officer ever advised Ms. Moore that she is not a suspect?
Objection outside of scope.
If you know.
If he has any knowledge, he can answer.
I have no knowledge.
As far as you know, has Ms. Moore been charged in this case?
No, sir.
Although she has never been advised that she's not a suspect.
I advised her that she was a suspect in reference to Mr. Mallard.
So she's a suspect that has not been charged. Is that what you're telling us?
She was a suspect up to the point where my investigation was concluded and I was able to rule her out.
Right now, is she a suspect?
No, sir.
Did you ever tell her that?
No, sir, I don't believe so.
On those telephone communications between Ms. Wuornos and Ms. Moore cries. You indicated that, right?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Moore indicates to Ms. Wuornos that she would like her to talk to law enforcement.
I don't recall.
You don't recall Ms. Moore saying, talk to them, tell them what happened? You don't recall any of that?
Not offhand, no, sir.
You are aware of the fact that those calls lasted for 3 days, 3 or 4 days.
Yes, sir.
And you are aware of the fact that Ms. Wuornos told Ms. Moore that she loved her during those telephonic communications
Yes, sir.
on a number of occasions.
Yes, sir.
You are aware of the fact that Ms. Wuornos told Ms. Moore that she would die for her during those telephonic communications
Yes, sir.
on more than one occasion.
That I don't recall.
And you are aware of the fact that at the last communication, Ms. Wuornos tells Ms. Moore that she will speak to law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
Who told you to go to the jail on January 16th?
To the best of my recollection, I had received a call to go into my operations center, and I received that information from Sergeant Earhart.
From whom, sorry?
Sergeant Earhart, my supervisor.
Ms. Wuornos had been in custody since January 9th, you testified, correct?
Yes, sir.
You did not try to interview her on January 9th, did you?
The only interview that I had with her was in reference to her arrest on that particular night.
Did you sit down with her, with Sergeant Munster, in a room with a recorder, read her Miranda rights, get her a lawyer, and take a statement on January 9th?
No, sir.
Did you sit down with her, with Sergeant Munster, in a room with a recorder, read her Miranda rights, and take her statement on January 10th?
No, sir.
You did not do that on the 11th.
No, sir.
You did not do that on the 13th.
No, sir.
But by the 13th, Ms. Moore was down in Florida, right?
I believe so.
You did not do that on the 14th.
No, sir.
On the 13th and 14th, Ms. Moore had passed a note, and they were talking to each other on the phone. Right?
Yes, sir.
You did not do that on the 15th.
No, sir.
And on the 15th, Ms. Moore had already passed a note, and they were talking to each other on the phone.
Yes, sir.
On the 16th, you and Sergeant Munster went and did that.
Yes, sir.
Where did you meet Sergeant Munster?
I believe it was at the operations center.
Where had he come from?
I don't know.
Did you ever ask him?
No, sir.
And when you walked into the room, you've already testified, the first thing that Ms. Wuornos told you was she wanted to clear Tyree Moore. In essence.
Stating she wanted to be straight and upfront with us. Yes, sir.
Well, look at page 1 of that transcript.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Wuornos says, I would like to know if I wanted to, and then there's a ... apparently some part of it was inaudible. If I wanted to be straight up with one thing right here and now, Sergeant Munster says, sure, and Ms. Wuornos says, the reason I'm confessing is there's no other girl, not another girl, right?
Yes, sir.
That's the very first thing she tells you and Sergeant Munster.
That's correct.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ask her why she was saying that?
No, sir.
Did you ever tell her that Ms. Moore had been working with law enforcement?
No, sir.
Did you ever tell her that she did not have to worry about Ms. Moore being arrested?
No, sir.
While you were going through the synopses with Mr. Tanner on direct examination, you testified that Ms. Wuornos, after the interrogation session started, was rambling.
During the first part, yes, sir.
What do you mean by rambling?
She went from one subject to another. She spoke about a little bit about the Mallory homicide. Then she would go back to talking about her life. She asked about an attorney, if an attorney would do her any good. She made statements about when somebody hassles me, I'm like, don't fuck with me. And like I say, then again, she jumps into part of Mr. Mallory's homicide. Instead of bouncing back and forth, not staying on one.
So she was bouncing around from subject to subject, right?
Yes, sir.
And you and Sergeant Munster would ask her about one thing, and she'd start talking about that, and by the time that conversation was over, she had moved on to something else.
No, sir. Everything that she said here was she gave voluntarily. We didn't ask her any during take one.
During the entire session, you and Sergeant Munster would ask her, there were points where you would ask her about something, she would start to answer that, and by the time it was over, she would be talking about something else, right?
Well, when I started to talk to her, I focused on Mr. Mallory's homicide.
You were trying to focus her on Mr. Mallory's homicide.
That's correct.
And you asked her about Mr. Mallory's homicide.
Yes, sir.
You asked her about that on a number of occasions.
Yes, sir.
And she would answer those questions. How often did she answer questions regarding Mallory?
Numerous times.
Why did she have to answer about questions regarding Mallory numerous times? Why did you have to ask her about Mallory numerous times?
Because I had a lot of questions.
Did Ms. Moore withdrawn? Let me ask you to turn to page 5.
Tape 1?
Tape 1.
Yes, sir.
Towards 3/4 of the way down, Ms. Wuornos says, but then I can't say that I said that I really meant it because I don't remember because I'd be drunk. And she goes on. Do you recall her saying that?
Yes, sir.
In fact, she indicated a number of occasions during her interaction with yourself and Sergeant Munster that she had been drinking while out on the road.
That's correct.
She indicated on a number of occasions that she had been drinking when she was with the individuals that Mr. Tanner asked you about,
That's correct.
both this time and the last time you testified.
Yes, sir.
She'd been drinking with Mr. Mallory.
Yes, sir.
And in fact, I think Ms. Jenkins asked you, and you confirmed that a vodka bottle was found,
Yes, sir.
consistent with what Ms. Wuornos told you.
Yes, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her what she'd been drinking on any of these occasions?
In reference to Mr. Mallory, she had said something about a tonic.
That wasn't my question, however. My question was, did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her what she had been drinking?
No, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her how much she had been drinking?
No, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her how much she had been drinking when she was with Mr. Spears?
I don't recall.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her how much she had been drinking when she was with Mr. Karskinen?
No, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her how much she had been drinking when she was with Mr. Sims?
No, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her how much she had been drinking when she was with Mr. Burris?
No, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her how much she had been drinking when she was with Mr. Humphreys?
No, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her how much she had been drinking when she was with Mr. Antonio?
No, sir.
And did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her how much she had been drinking when she was with Mr. Mallory? I know you told me she mentioned she'd been drinking, but did you ever ask her, Lee, what were you drinking, how much, where, when? Did you ever ask her those questions?
No, sir.
You asked her a whole bunch of other stuff, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
Sergeant Munster asked her a whole bunch of other stuff, right?
Yes, sir.
Showed her pictures.
Yes, sir.
Asked her about property.
Yes, sir.
Asked her about where she'd been.
Yes, sir.
Asked her about what she'd been doing on certain occasions.
Correct.
But you never asked her about her drinking.
No, sir.
She also indicated to you, same page, bottom of page 5, I can tell you blow by blow as much as I can everything. I'm being as honest as I can be. And then there's a space, obviously the person typing the transcript missed a portion. I told her if anybody comes to talk to you, just be as honest as you can be. Who is she talking about there?
Talking about Ty Moore.
When did she tell Ty Moore if anybody talks to her to be honest?
It was a time during the phone conversation.
You heard that on the tape, right?
Yes, sir.
You heard Ms. Moore ask Ms. Wuornos what she should do in reference to law enforcement coming down on her family, right?
I don't remember it in that context, but I remember that part.
You heard Ms. Moore say something to Ms. Wuornos, and then you heard Ms. Wuornos tell her, just be honest.
That's correct.
Just tell the truth.
That's correct.
When she told Ms. Moore to be honest, she didn't say right after that Ms. Moore should hide anything, right? During that take, when she was saying just be honest.
During the
last take.
I don't recall.
And it was after the last tape that you and Sergeant Munster went and talked to Ms. Wuornos.
That's correct.
On that last tape, Ms. Wuornos said she would be honest also, did she not?
Yes, sir.
Why didn't law enforcement have Ms. Moore talk to Ms. Wuornos some more on the phone? You had 11 tapes, why not have them talk some more?
Ms. Wuornos has to speak to us.
And on the tape, you heard Ms. Wuornos tell Ms. Moore that she was going to speak to law enforcement on that last tape.
That's correct.
To clear Ms. Moore. Right?
I don't recall.
Okay.
turn to page 6. Towards the middle of the page, Ms. Wuornos tells you and Sergeant Munster that she and Ms. Moore were lovers.
Page 6, about halfway down?
Yeah, about halfway down. Just a little bit after halfway down. The line starts with inaudible.
That's correct.
Okay? She tells you and Sergeant Munster that I loved her to the max, referring to Ms. Moore.
Yes, sir.
And she says right after that, and the only reason I'm confessing to is because I loved her so much, I don't want to get her in trouble because she's not the one. You recall her saying that, right?
Yes, sir.
She then goes on in that same, and that, by the way, what we're reading from now on page 6 is one big paragraph, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
It's like one huge single-spaced paragraph, from margin to margin, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, you and Sergeant Munster aren't jumping in there.
No, sir.
You're not asking her questions.
No, sir.
And in there, Ms. Wuornos covers a number of different subjects, doesn't she?
Yes, sir.
She covers Ms. Moore. She covers how many men she's been with. She covers things that had happened to her, right?
Yes, sir.
All sort of in a rambling way, right?
Yes, sir.
Is that an example of what you were talking about when you said rambling?
Yes, sir.
Or for bouncing around from one thing to the other?
That's correct.
Did you know whether she was on any medication?
No, sir.
When Ms. Moore was picked up on the 9th, where was she? Ms. Wuornos, I'm sorry. Where was she picked up?
At the last resort bar.
Do you know where she'd been staying right before that?
At the bar itself.
She'd been sleeping at the bar?
She was there during that, the night before.
Do you know how much Ms. Wuornos had been drinking during that time period?
No, sir.
Towards the bottom of page 6, Ms. Wuornos says, and I wasn't about to let somebody rape me either. You recall her saying that to you and Sergeant Munster?
On the page?
Towards the bottom of page 6, yeah, it's the line that starts with and.
Yes, sir.
Who's she talking about there?
Men in general?
Men in general, or the men that you and Sergeant Munster were asking her about?
Let's say in general.
The very next line she says, so when they got really huffy with me, which I had gone over 250,000 men. That's what the transcript says, right?
Yes, sir.
So she's distinguishing between those who are about to rape her and the other 200 some odd thousand, right?
Yes, sir.
She didn't talk about they were trying to rape me in reference to 200 some odd thousand men, right?
No, sir.
And then right after that she says, that's because they got rough with me and I defended myself.
That's correct.
Who was she making reference to there?
6 guys.
Same 6 guys that she mentioned when she said, and I wasn't about to let somebody rape me either, right?
No, sir, I don't believe so.
Okay, you draw a distinction there. That's because they got rough with me and I defended myself. That, however, you have no question was in reference to the folks that you talked to Mr. Tanner about, right?
Yes, sir.
This time and the last time you testified.
Yes, sir.
Including Mr. Mallory.
Yes, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ask her at that point, tell me specifically who are you talking about?
No, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ask her at that point, what do you mean getting rough with you?
No, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ask her at that point, what do you mean defending yourself?
No, sir, because she had asked for an attorney.
The very next line she says is, so that's, I just want to clear this, I just want to get all this out in the open, right?
Yes, sir.
I want to clear it, and I want to clear my girlfriend because she's not involved.
That's correct.
On the next page, same tape, page 7, she says, most of the times I was drunk. Right?
Yes, sir.
She says, because I'll admit I'm an alcoholic. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
I mean, 24 hours a day I was drunk, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ask her which person she's saying these things in reference to?
No, sir.
You said a few minutes ago she said something about she had asked for an attorney?
That's correct.
Can you check the next question Sergeant Munster asks?
He states here what he said.
What did he say, right?
That's correct.
He doesn't stop questioning and go, oh, wait, we're waiting for an attorney, does he?
Mr. Munster makes that statement based on what Ms. Moore had said one line earlier.
Ms. Wuornos.
I'm sorry, Ms. Wuornos had said one line earlier.
Okay.
I believe it caught him off guard, and that's...
So he heard what she told him, and he asked her a follow-up question. Right?
No, sir, I think it just... that particular line that she said, it caught him off guard, and he had a reflex action as far as that.
What's the very next thing Sergeant Munster says on the next page?
A response to Ms. Wuornos where she says that I see the tape still going, and he says yes it is.
And then Sergeant Munster says two other things on page 9.
Yes, sir.
In none of those pages, 7, 8, or 9, do you or Sergeant Munster tell Ms. Wuornos to stop until a lawyer shows up, right?
I know in one time here, Mr. Sergeant Munster advises her that maybe she shouldn't be talking. I don't know if it's on these particular pages or not.
Okay, but it's not on those pages, right?
No, sir.
Later on, an attorney showed up.
Yes, sir.
That attorney, by the way, is not one of the three of us, right?
No, sir.
And that attorney advised Ms. Wuornos that she should not talk to you and Sergeant Munster.
That's correct.
And she refused his advice.
That's correct.
She told him, and actually it's unclear from the transcript itself, but she's talking to yourself and Sergeant Munster and the attorney and saying that she wants to clear Ms. Moore and she wants to tell you guys what was going on. Right?
Yes, sir.
And then she proceeded to do that.
Yes, sir.
And you testified on direct examination about Miranda rights being read and being waived and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yes, sir.
At that point, after she did those things, did you ask her, Lee, what did you mean by most of the times I was drunk? Because I'll admit, I'm an alcoholic. I mean, 24 hours a day I was drunk. Did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her, what did you mean by that?
No, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ask her, after the lawyer showed up, what did you mean by, that's because they got rough with me and I defended myself?
What page is that, sir?
That was on page 6.
Tape 2?
Take 1.
Tape 1?
Towards the bottom, we looked at it a few minutes ago.
No, sir.
Never asked her to explain those things, right?
No, sir.
You never asked her to explain what she meant by defending herself with Mallory, right?
When she spoke about Mr. Mallory's homicide, she never gave me any specifics about what Mr. Mallory had done.
She said, I was defending myself in this portion.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever ask her, who were you defending yourself with?
No, sir.
Did you ever ask her, what did you mean by defending yourself?
No, sir.
Did you ever ask her, what were you defending yourself against?
No, sir.
On page 7, towards the top, Ms. Wuornos says, I have to say it, that I killed them because they got violent with me, and I decided to defend myself. I wasn't going to let them beat the shit out of me or kill me either. Do you recall her saying that?
Yes, sir.
At any point, after the lawyer shows up and all that stuff with the lawyer happens, did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her, What did you mean by that? What did you mean by they got violent with me?
No, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her, who are you talking about when you say they got violent with me?
No, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her, what was going on in your head? What did you perceive that made you think they were getting violent with you?
No, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her, when she says now for the third or fourth time, I decided to defend myself, who are you making reference to when you say that?
No, sir.
She did say, I wasn't going to let him beat the shit out of me or kill me, right?
Counsel, you approach the bench.
He was trying to screw me in the ass and stuff, and then there's a pause. Sergeant Munster says, what did he say? And she says he was going to try to, pause, anal screw, you know, anal screw, or whatever you call it. So I started fighting with him, and I got to my bag, and I shot him. And then when I shot him the first time, he just backed away, and she goes on. Who's she talking about there?
I don't know, sir. It wasn't about Mallory.
How do you know it was not about Mallory?
Because when we started talking about Mallory, and I asked her to give me all the information, and I asked her in a sequence what happened next, she never described to me any type of attack that Mallory might have attempted on.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ask her who you were talking about in this regard?
No, sir.
When you were talking about Mallory with her, did you ask her about fears of anal sex or anything like that, you yourself?
No, sir. I asked her what happened each step of the way, and she had given me two versions.
You remember a few days ago you testified and Ms. Jenkins cross-examined you.
That's correct.
And you remember talking, you had a little synopsis with reference to Mallory?
Yes, sir.
One of the, what you call versions relating to Mallory appears on page 7 of the transcript of tape 1, does it not? If you could just look at your synopsis. You make reference to page 7 of the transcript in your synopsis.
Yes, sir.
And what we're just talking about now regarding anal sex and regarding I started fighting with him and regarding Ms. Wuornos' fear is on page 7 of the transcript.
Yes, sir, but it's not the part that I show is where she's relating to all the victims.
I'm sorry?
That's not the part where I show as far as where I had for page 7 on the witness on elimination for all the victims. That was underneath that where it started, where if the guy lives, he's going to tell on me and I'm going to get it for attempted murder and all this jazz.
Okay. But with regard to what I was just asking you about, does Ms. Wuornos use anybody's name?
No, sir.
Do you use anybody's name?
No, sir.
Does Sergeant Munster use anybody's name?
No, sir.
And nobody asked her if that was Mallory that she was talking about?
No, sir.
Later on, a little bit lower on page 7, she says, the stupid bastard would have killed me, so I kept shooting. Recall that part?
Yes, sir.
You indicated that was in reference to Mallory, right?
That was a generic as far as all the, I felt was all the victims.
So she felt all the victims would have killed her. That's what you felt, that she believed all the victims would have killed her.
Yes, sir, in her mind.
Objection as to the frame of the question, Your Honor, as to the reconstruction.
Go ahead.
On page 8, the line starting with inaudible, right towards the middle of the page. Ms. Wuornos says, I would hitchhike. A guy would pick me up, and I'd ask him if they were interested in helping me out because I'm trying to make rent money, you know. And then they'd say, how much? And I'd say, 30 for head, 35 for straight, 40 for half and half, 100 an hour, and then, you know, then they'd say, well, I'll take this or whatever, and then now, and then there's a space. I'm telling you, I've dealt with 100,000 guys, but these guys are the only guys that gave me a problem. And they started giving me a problem just, and there's a space, it goes on this year. Do you recall her saying that?
Yes, sir.
That's consistent with what you mentioned a moment ago, that Ms. Wuornos' perception was that she was defending herself with these particular guys.
Yes, sir.
On page 9, the line starting with myself, slightly over, slightly down the page. Ms. Wuornos says, I still say that it was in self-defense because most of them either were going to start to beat me up or were going to screw me in the ass, and they'd be rough with me, so I'd fight them and I'd get them away from me. And then as I'd get them away, I'd run to the front of the car and jump over the seat or whatever and grab my gun. Do you recall her saying that?
Yes, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ask her anything specifically when you heard that?
No, sir.
Sergeant Munster just says yes, is the next thing he says later in the page.
Yes, sir.
Then on that same page, Ms. Wuornos reiterates that the only reason she's confessing has to do with Ms. Moore.
Yes, sir.
On page 11, Ms. Wuornos is talking to Sergeant Munster. And she says she's glad she's getting this over with towards the bottom of the page. She talks about getting herself straight with God, and then she says, but when I get drunk, like I said, I'd be drinking with these guys, and when they start messing with me, I would never hurt nobody, but if they messed with me, then I have to say I'd get just as violent as they would get on me to try to protect myself. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
The very next word you say to Ms. Wuornos is, okay, right?
Yes, sir.
You did not ask her what did she mean by getting violent with me, right?
I believe when I said okay, they were getting ready to take Miss Munster to the bathroom, and
Okay.
some people were coming in. I wasn't saying an okay to her statement.
So you weren't even responding to her statement?
I was listening to it, but like I said, she had asked for a lawyer, so I was asking her no questions.
Did you ask her at any point after all the lawyer stuff about what did she mean by trying to protect myself? Did you ever say, Lee, what did you mean when you said try to protect myself?
No, sir.
Sergeant Munster.
No, sir.
And you've already testified you asked her a whole bunch of things, however.
Yes, sir.
And so did Sergeant Munster.
Yes, sir.
On page 14, Ms. Wuornos says, towards the middle of the page, Sergeant Munster says, excuse me, and maybe you shouldn't be saying these things to me, referring to an attorney, right? You guys were waiting for an attorney at the time. And Ms. Wuornos says, I don't understand. Aren't you people attorneys too or anything? Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
You answered no, ma'am, to that. We're investigators.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Did she tell you to leave when you told her you were not attorneys?
No, sir.
She wanted to cooperate with you.
Yes,
even
sir.
after this, right? On page 15, same statement. Ms. Wuornos, middle of the page, Ms. Wuornos says, yeah, I know that I have to defend myself because if I didn't, he probably would have hurt me, killed me, raped me, or whatever. Because I'm telling you, I'm serious. I've gone through at least 250,000 guys in my life, at least, and never hurt any of them. Matter of fact, I became very good friends with them, you know, and they really like me. Who is she talking about there? I know that I have to defend myself because if I didn't, and so on and so forth.
I think, again, that's another generic statement.
So she's making these generic statements, and in none of them are you and Sergeant Munster asking her who she's talking about, right?
No, sir.
And in none of them are you and Sergeant Munster asking her what is going through her head that made her perceive herself as being threatened and wanting to defend herself, right?
No, sir.
On page 17, bottom of the page. This is after a public defender, Mr. O'Neill, was it? Was Mr. O'Neill, right?
That's correct.
Mr. O'Neill appears. He advises Ms. Wuornos that she should not provide statements. And she says that she's willing to do that.
He's on his way down at that particular...
He's on his way down. You're right. You're right. And at the bottom of the page, he says, "I just want to get it over with, but I'm really honest. I'm being as honest as I can be. I would not hurt them. I've gone to bed with so many men. I mean..." And then she goes on and tells some stories about her past experiences with men, right?
Yes, sir.
And she then goes on and, "See, I wouldn't have not hurt nobody unless I had to. Then the only reason I did it is because I had to. And yes, we were drinking, and yes, I was drunk, but, and there were times these guys weren't even drunk." Do you recall her saying that?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever ask her, "Lee, what do you mean by unless I had to?"
No, sir.
I'm sorry?
No, sir.
Did Sergeant Munster?
No, sir.
She goes on in that same paragraph, "I was drunk, so they were going to take advantage of me because I was a lit, you know, so that's the only reason I did anything, that I did because I knew I had to do something." Did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her, "Lee, what do you mean when you say I had to do something?"
No, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her, "Who are you talking about at this point?"
No, sir.
She then goes on, "Because if I didn't, they would have beat the shit out of me and probably found my gun and shot me, or beat the shit out of me and took off, or beat the shit out of me and raped me and take off."
Excuse me, I lost Mr. Knowles. What page were you on?
I'm sorry, page 18.
Tape one.
Tape 1. "You know, I don't know, those things were going through my head. So Lee told you and Sergeant Munster that these are the things that were going through her head, right?"
Yes, sir.
Did either one of you ever ask her why? Why were these things going through your head when you were with these fellas?
No, sir. Like I said, I was waiting for the lawyer.
I'm sorry?
I was waiting for the lawyer to come.
Later, after the lawyer, did you ever ask her, "Lee, why were these things going through your head?"
I asked her again in reference to Mr. Mallory. She told me she was going to tell the entire truth about the incident. She gave me the entire incident as she told it, and during that time, she gave me no information as far as any type of an attack Mr. Mallory may have produced on her.
You asked her some questions about Mallory and she answered them.
That's correct.
Among those questions, did you ever ask her, why were these things going through your head?
No, sir.
Among those questions, was there ever the question, were you drinking at the time? How much? What? Where? When? How?
Objection on repetitious ask and answer.
Never asked her those things, right?
Objection, ask and answer.
Never asked her about self-defense in reference to Mallory. You never asked her, were you defending yourself with Mallory? Right?
No, sir.
Never asked her, what made you think you needed to defend yourself with Mallory? Right? What went through your head that triggered that thought? Never asked her that.
She told me that he was the two versions. The one was that...
That's not my question. My question is, did you ever ask her what made you think you were defending yourself with Mallory?
If Your Honor, please, I would respectfully ask the witness to be allowed to fully answer the question and certainly explain his answer if necessary.
Did you ever ask her what made you think you needed to defend yourself with Mallory? That question.
No, sir.
On page 20, Ms. Wuornos says, I have to admit, I'm scared about all this. I mean, I'm very scared. Do you recall her saying that?
Yes, sir.
And she says, I wouldn't have confessed if it wasn't for the fact that I don't want my girlfriend involved. Do you recall her saying that?
Yes, sir.
That's consistent with what we testified a while ago, that throughout the statement she was exhibiting an intent to clear Ms. Moore.
Yes, sir.
On page 21, towards the bottom of the page, Ms. Wuornos says, oh, you guys really, you can put me under hypnosis. You can take a lie detector test. Do whatever you can to make me show you that Ty does not know, and then she goes on. Do you recall her saying that?
Yes, sir.
Again, that exhibits an intent to clear Ms. Moore, right?
Yes, sir.
On page 23, middle of the page, Ms. Wuornos says, I wish I never ever hooked, and I wish I never would have met these guys. Recall that?
Yes, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ask her why she said that? She wishes she had never met these guys?
No, sir.
At the bottom of that paragraph, and that, by the way, this paragraph, we won't go through the whole thing, but on page 23, there's another one of these rambling paragraphs, right, where she's talking about various incidents, her past, her telephone conversations with Ms. Moore, all sorts of different things in there. All right, it's another example of that, basically. Right?
Yes, sir.
It's another rambling thing. At the bottom of that paragraph, she says, you almost killed me. You almost raped me. You almost beat the shit out of me. So you know, that's how I have to look at it. I have to look at it that way too. So I can't really say, and she goes on. You recall that?
Yes, sir.
Who was she talking about there?
Again, I believe it was generic.
She then goes on page 24, full paragraph at the bottom. You know, I know that these guys, one guy had a weapon with him. He had a .45. You recall that?
Yes, sir.
Who was she talking about there?
It was Mr. Carskadon.
Did Ms. Wuornos say this is Mr. Carskadon?
No, sir.
How do you know it's Mr. Carskadon?
Based on the information from the homicides.
So she mentioned that there was one of these people she was defending herself against was a guy with a .45.
Yes, sir.
And from your knowledge of the Carskadon case, you pieced together that that would have been Mr. Carskadon.
Yes, sir.
So in reference to this situation, you did not need to ask her who she was talking about because you figured it out later, right?
Again, I didn't ask her anything in reference to this because of the request of the lawyer.
I'm sorry?
I did not ask her anything in reference to this or any others because of the request of the lawyer.
Later, did you ask her, who's this guy with the .45 you're talking about?
Later on, the Carskadon homicide was reviewed by Investigator Munster.
Did Ms. Wuornos ever say to Investigator Munster, yeah, Carskadon, I remember that name?
No, sir.
She said the guy with the .45.
Yes, sir.
And you pieced that together and you figured out who she was talking about.
Yes, sir.
Did you do that with reference to all of these statements here about self-defense and drinking and all of that kind of stuff? Did you go back and piece those together and figure out who she was talking about there, other than this generic?
Yes, sir. She didn't know the names of the victims.
So those statements relate to some of these, to these fellas, but you did not piece who she's talking about. You're not putting that down like you did with Carson, right?
I'm sorry, you lost me.
I'll rephrase it. On tape 2, page 5, Ms. Wuornos, middle of the page, says, all right, he asked me if I wanted to smoke a joint, and I said, well, I don't really smoke pot. He said...
Excuse me, Your Honor, we're on page 2 now?
Page 5, tape 2.
I'm sorry, tape 2?
Tape 2.
Your Honor, I would object to the methodology. It is not consistent, and I would object that you simply ask a question, ask the witness if he can answer the question, and proceed from there.
Fair notation, and I recommend it.
Well, I'm just fine. Read to yourself the paragraph in the middle of page 5 of tape 2.
Where it begins with, all right?
Yeah.
I would object, Your Honor, to just reading the transcript thinking ask a question. He's not asking the questions, he's asking you just read the transcript, and that's not permissible in cross-examination otherwise, unless there's some question connected to it.
Well, the transcript is the predicate to the question, Your Honor, but I can rephrase it.
Please do.
Yes, Your Honor. Did Ms. Wuornos say, in reference to Mr. Mallory, that he had been drinking?
Yes, sir.
Did she say, in reference to Mr. Mallory, that he had been smoking marijuana?
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered previously with an alternate standards.
Well, let me answer you.
Yes, sir.
Did she say, in reference to Mr. Mallory, that she had been drinking when she was with him? We're getting pretty drunk now.
Objection, Your Honor. Repetitious from prior testimony.
Let me answer this again.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever ask her what effect the drinking had on her with Mr. Mallory?
No, sir.
Did Sergeant Munster?
No, sir.
Please turn to page 7. Did Ms. Wuornos ever tell you, Sergeant, or Sergeant Munster, middle of the page, that Mr. Mallory was coming toward her?
Yes, sir.
And when she said that, your next words were, okay, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever ask her, what do you mean by coming towards you?
She had answered it from my previous one because I had asked where the positions of both of them were, and she had advised me that he was behind the wheel of the car, she was on the passenger side, and he was coming toward her from the steering wheel, driver's side, to the passenger side where she was.
Did you ever ask her how he was coming toward her? Whether
No,
it
sir.
was fast, whether it was anything along those lines?
No, sir.
Did you ever ask her what he was doing when he was coming toward her?
No, sir.
Did you ever ask her what she perceived him doing when he was coming toward her?
No, sir.
On that same page, Ms. Wuornos makes reference to he's getting really heavy. Recall that? I won't go through the whole paragraph, but it's in the next paragraph.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever ask her what she meant by he's getting really heavy?
No, sir.
Did you ever ask her what made her perceive him as getting really heavy?
No, sir.
That same paragraph, she says, then he started getting violent with me. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
That was in reference to Mr. Mallory.
Yes, sir.
That's who she's talking about there, right?
And she explains it by saying we're fighting a little bit.
Did you ask her, what do you mean by, then he started getting violent with me? Did you ask her that?
No, sir, because on her next sentence where she says we're fighting a little bit, to me that was my answer to getting violent. We're beginning to fight some. A little bit.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her, what do you mean by we're fighting a little bit? Where are you fighting a little bit? How do you define a little bit?
Well, I know where they are because they told me that they're inside the car.
Did you ever ask her, what do you mean by that? How do you define that?
No, sir.
Page 8, same transcript. Ms. Wuornos says, I think he was going to roll me, take my money back, beat me up, or whatever the heck he was going to do. Do you recall her saying that?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever ask her, what did Mr. Mallory do to make her perceive that?
Excuse me, Your Honor, I would respectfully object. We presented the entire Mallory confession several days ago. There was a full cross-examination of every aspect of that, and now counsel has entered into a whole renewed cross-examination. We didn't even talk about the Mallory case as it pertains to the individual acts on this series of testimony. In fact, we're getting a cross-examination of something I didn't even ask the officer about. It's going to cause me to have to go back in and present the whole Mallory incident again. It's repetitious.
We will enjoy that to redirect.
I guess my objection is it's repetitious, Your Honor.
Yes, sir, but I do not want to interfere with the right full cost.
Yes, sir.
Did you ask her what she perceived to make her think he was going to beat her up?
No, sir.
And when she's talking about the person who was going to beat her up here, she was talking about Mallory.
That's correct.
You did not ask her what Mallory did or what she perceived him as doing.
When she said that, I took that as that she didn't know what he was going to do, if anything at all.
I think he was going to roll me, take my money back, beat me up. That's what she said, right?
She also said, or whatever.
Or whatever. Did you ever ask her what made you think that?
No, sir.
Page 9. Towards the bottom of the page. Ms. Wuornos says, I jumped out of the car because he was physically trying to abuse me. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
Did you or Sergeant Munster ever ask her what she perceived to be physical abuse?
No, sir.
And she's talking about Mallory here, right?
Yes, sir.
Page 10, top of the page. Ms. Wuornos describes, my God, you know, I said, well, it hurt her to do that. Then he got pissed, calling me. He said, fuck you, baby. I'm going to screw you right here and now, something like that. Do you recall her saying that?
Your Honor, I would object. Again, we reverted back to counsel's reading and asking for a yes or no. It's not.
In all honesty, Judge, that one was to save time and I'll avoid it. Do you recall her saying that?
Yes, sir.
The question you ask her is, where are you, right after that, right?
Yes, sir.
Again, you and Sergeant Munster did not ask Ms. Wuornos anything about her perceptions at that time.
No, sir. I'm trying to lock down basics.
And when she was describing the other cases, her descriptions were consistent with what she said about Mallory, right? As to each of the instances, she says she had been drinking, right?
I don't recall each instance.
Do you recall an instance where Ms. Wuornos said, I was with this guy. I was not drinking with this guy.
No, sir.
As to each of the instances, Ms. Wuornos provided to you and Sergeant Munster what she perceived to be a situation in which she was defending herself or acting against some type of assault, right?
Yes, sir.
There was not an instance where she said, no, with this guy, it was different. It was intentional, right?
That's correct.
In fact, she told you she never intended to kill anyone, right?
At the beginning of the tape, yes, sir.
In reference to all of these fellows.
Yes, sir.
And she told you that she never intended to rob anyone, right?
Yes, sir.
She gave you examples of that. She told you she'd been with 200-some-odd-thousand men and nothing had happened with that other group of men, right?
Yes, sir.
She also told you that she never planned to go out and harm anyone on the road, right?
That's correct.
She also told you that she never premeditated. She never mentioned premeditating anything, right?
No, sir.
When she was talking about retrieving Mr. Mallory's keys, do you recall how she told you that was done?
Retrieving his keys?
Well, she went into his pockets and got his keys so she could drive the car, right?
Yes, sir.
She did not say that she was looking for money in his pockets. Right? It was the keys she was talking about.
What page is that, sir?
I think it was in your Mallory synopsis.
What page, sir?
Can I have a moment, Your Honor? I flipped my pages. Ms. Jenkins is going to find it. Just hold that thought, Detective, and I'll move on to something else to say tonight. On page 47, tape 2, bottom paragraph.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Wuornos says, I had no intentions of killing anybody.
Yes, sir.
That was in response to a question by yourself as to whether she told anybody beforehand that she was going to harm them or to do something to them, right?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Wuornos was asked questions about locations of things, like of cars.
Yes, sir.
Her accounts on those questions were relatively accurate, right?
Yes, sir.
The cars checked out where she said they were.
Yes, sir.
She was also asked about locations of decedents, correct?
Yes, sir.
And her accounts checked out on the locations with regard to decedents.
Yes, sir.
She was also asked about items of property, right?
Yes, sir.
And her accounts checked out as to items of property,
Yes, sir.
right? When she said a suitcase, that Tyria Moore had a certain suitcase, Tyria Moore did have that suitcase, right?
Yes, sir.
When she said, I gave Tyria Moore this, this, and that, and Tyria Moore took this, this, and that, Tyria Moore had already turned those things over to investigators, right?
Yes, sir.
And when she talked about where she threw the gun away, folks went and found the gun there. Law enforcement officers, right?
Yes, sir.
On each of those things that Ms. Wuornos related, when, during the course of your investigation, law enforcement checked those things out, her account was found to be accurate. More or less. Nobody's 100% accurate, but more or less. The gun was where she said it, the property was where she said it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, sir.
When she said that Mr. Mallory was getting violent with her after drinking, did law enforcement, yourself or any other officer, do anything to check out that account? In other words, did you investigate Mr. Mallory's background?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry?
Yes, sir.
And in doing that, you spoke to Jacqueline Davis, correct?
Yes, sir.
In investigating Mr. Mallory's background, you found out that what Ms. Wuornos told you, some of those things checked out, right? He did have a history of drinking.
Yes, sir.
He did have a history of marijuana use, right?
For Ms. Davis, yes, sir.
Objection, Your Honor. We're in the hearsay now for another day.
During the course of your investigation, when Ms. Wuornos told you, just by way of example, where certain property was, you went and you found the property there and checked out.
Yes, sir.
When Ms. Wuornos told you that Mr. Mallory was violent towards her, you went and you checked out his history of violence towards women, and that checked out, right?
Objection, excuse me, Your Honor. He knows that's a proper question. And I ask that the question be stricken as you're in position.
Disregard for that question.
Did you, during the course of your investigation, uncover evidence regarding Mr. Mallory's incarceration record?
Objection, Your Honor.
Did you, during the course of your investigation, come across evidence regarding Mr. Mallory's personality traits?
Objection, Your Honor.
Did you, during your investigation, come across evidence regarding experimental treatment that Mr. Mallory had received?
Objection, irrelevant, immaterial, asking the question to be stricken as prejudicial and intended to prejudice the jury without submission.
Did you, during the course of your investigation, come across evidence regarding threats and violence directed by Mr. Mallory towards women in the past?
Objection, Your Honor. We would like to object and ask the counsel be instructed to not ask questions that he knows are inadmissible for the purpose of prejudice the jury. This is similar to we need to quit either.
To clarify the record, Your Honor, so I don't do, Your Honor knows some of these relate to a certain group of items that we've been discussing. I won't get it. Are you, if I keep going along these same lines where Your Honor rules similarly, just so that I know?
Seems like a pattern, doesn't it?
It does, Judge.
Seems like a pattern. Respectfully, Your Honor, the pattern disregards the rules of evidence, and I would object to continuing the pattern and disregard the rules of evidence.
That's why I made the inquiry, Your Honor, because I tried to touch different categories, and Your Honor has indicated that entire area. As far as the legal arguments on this issue, it's not appropriate. I would submit to do it in front of the jury. I can do it at a later time before Your Honor. Thank you, Judge. A briefcase that was discussed between Sergeant Munster and Ms. Wuornos was found in the property of Ms. Moore, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry?
Yes, sir.
And it was a briefcase relating to this prosecution.
Yes, sir.
And it was, and other items of property were in Ms. Moore's possession, right?
Yes, sir.
You testified that Ms. Wuornos said that something regarding, I'll just read you my note, and you'll find it in your synopsis. About
Objection asked and answered. He's already answered his own question, Judge.
This is a note from Director.
Go ahead.
Something about control, or that she liked being in control, or something like that, do you recall testifying about that in direct examination?
Yes, sir.
Can you give me the transcript page where that's said?
Page 59. Approximately 3/4 of the way down.
Who were you talking about during this interaction with Ms. Wuornos?
Approximately halfway down where she starts about.
No, I know where it is, but who were you talking about?
Your Honor, the witness trying to answer the question. Will you be allowed to do that?
Yes, sir. Let him answer the question before you proceed.
Yes, Judge.
We had started off with Ms. Wuornos saying, "I remember the missionary guy," which was Mr. Sims.
Okay. And Ms. Wuornos says, like...
Objection, Your Honor. May the witness be allowed to finish his answer.
Let him answer the question, sir.
The question was, who was she talking about, and the detective gave a name.
You answered completely, sir.
No, sir.
Let him answer your question.
Yes, Judge.
We had started off with Mr. Sims. Then it went to a generic, and she She states here, you're going to rape me, you're going to kill me, whatever you're going to do, it's not going to happen because I'm on the other end of the stick now, see? And that's when I say, then you're in control, and she agrees with me.
Okay, and that's where you got the control concept from,
That's
right?
correct.
Wuornos says, like, hey, dude, you're going to rape me. You're going to kill me. Whatever you're going to do, it's not going to happen because now I'm on the other end of the stick now. And you say to her, you're in control. And she says, yeah.
That's correct.
She never used the word control, right?
That's correct.
She said, you're going to rape me, you're going to kill me, and now I'm on the other end of the stick.
That's correct.
Have we have a moment here? Detective, when you, I guess maybe tomorrow is the better time to do it. Well, we'll try it. Can I see the synopsis? Just take a look at it.
My large one here?
The little ones.
These are the ones you already have. These are the ones that just made up.
Detective, if you don't mind making us copies of those, we don't need them today, but just if you can have them delivered to us tomorrow or something.
No problem.
You have some yellow markings through those synopses, like highlighting, or sort of like this, like what I did with the statement.
Yes, sir.
What is the purpose of those highlightings?
Just draw my attention to pertinent information.
I have nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you, Detective.
Stand up, Mr. Rick.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please report. During the dialogue, kind of a rambling because no questions were being asked of Ms. Wuornos on the first tape, you said neither you nor Officer Munster really asked her any questions at that time once. Why is that?
Because she had requested a lawyer.
Okay. And is that when she was kind of given this, it was self-defense, et cetera, and you weren't questioning her at all, were you?
That's correct.
Because she said she wanted a lawyer, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were waiting for the lawyer to arrive.
Yes, sir.
And in your training as a major case investigator, what is your training once a defendant says, I want a lawyer?
I cease talking to that person until they've had contact with an attorney.
All right. But if they ask you questions, can you answer their questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And some of that went on. She asked a few questions of you and Munster, right?
Yes, sir.
But you all basically quit asking her any questions and didn't ask her what she was saying because she said she wanted a lawyer before she talked to you.
That's correct.
And then she went on talking.
Yes, sir.
And she gave a few more reasons than the mere fact that she wanted to protect Ty Moore for telling about these murders, didn't she?
Yes, sir.
She over and over again said she's guilty, didn't she?
Objection to the leading, Your Honor.
What are some of the other reasons that she gave for wanting to talk to you?
Right on page 1, she said that the reason why she wanted to talk to us was to let you know that I'm the one who did the killings.
And what did she say with regard to the guilt of Ty Moore or innocence? I'm not asking you to read quotes. Do you remember what she told you every time you asked her about Ty Moore?
She said that she had nothing to do with these murders, that she was the only one involved.
Now, for a while, Ty Moore was a suspect in this case, wasn't she?
Yes, sir.
Primarily for several reasons. One had something to do with an automobile wreck.
Leading, Your Honor, objection. What were the reasons? No objection, Your Honor.
red page of grass, I don't know what trust.
There was, all right, what were the several reasons that before you talked to Ty Moore and Aileen Wuornos and completed your investigations, you suspected her because of some incident on July 4th, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
And what was that?
That was when Mr. Sims' car was wrecked in Marion County, and 2 women were seen crawling out of that particular car.
Okay, and those are pictures that the artist did the rendition of?
The sketches, yes, sir.
And, but your ultimate complete investigation revealed what with regard to Ty Moore, with regard to any guilt on the robberies or murders?
That she was not involved.
Ty Moore voluntarily helped law enforcement, didn't she?
Yes, sir, even though she knew that she was under suspicion still.
Okay. With regard to her, and I'm talking here about Ms. Wuornos, first 25 pages is in tape 1, kind of rambling through different subjects. Did she appear to be coherent?
Yes, sir.
She appeared to be logical in her words and thought structure as she talked.
Yes, sir.
Any reason to believe that she didn't know what she was doing when she talked at that time?
No, sir.
On pages 5 and 6, she discussed, and I'm talking about tape 1, she discussed the killing of Mallory kind of sketchily, did she not?
Yes, sir.
In that area, in getting on to page 5 and 6, is that where Aileen Wuornos told how the 2 of them had been in the car together?
Yes, sir.
Did Ms. Wuornos indicate to you when Ty Moore first found out that she was riding in a stolen car with regard to the Sims vehicle?
Yes, sir. She first found out about it when the car was wrecked.
And did she indicate who did the talking to the paramedics when they came up and saw these 2 women walking alongside the road?
Yes, sir. Ms. Wuornos did all the talking.
Now, Mr. Knowles asked you about this area on page 7 where it begins in the middle of the page where she says, "See, one guy, he was trying to screw me." Do you see where I'm beginning there?
Yes, sir.
You read fragments of that for Mr. Knowles and the jury. Would you begin reading there and just read all the way down to the bottom of the page and from the transcript?
Ms. Wuornos is saying, "See, one guy, he was trying to screw me in the ass and stuff." Investigator Munster says, "What did he say?" Ms. Wuornos replies, "He was going to try to a anal screw. You know, anal screw or whatever you call it. So I started fighting with him, and I got to my bag and I shot him. And then when I shot him the first time, he just backed away. And I thought to myself, well, hell, should I, try to help this guy, or should I just kill him? So I didn't know what to do. So I figured, well, if I help the guy and he lives, he's going to tell on me, and I'm going to get for attempted murder all this jazz. And I thought, well, the best thing to do is just keep shooting them. Then I get to the point that I thought, well, I shot him. The stupid bastard would have killed me, so I kept shooting, In other words, I shot him, and then I said to myself, damn, if I didn't shot him, he would have shot me because he would have beat the shit out of me. Maybe I would have been unconscious. He would have found my gun going through my stuff and shot me because he probably would have gone to get it for trying to rape me, see? So I shot him, and then I thought to myself, well, hell, I might as well just keep on shooting him because I got to kill the guy because he's gonna, go and tell somebody if he lives or whatever. Then I thought to myself, well, this, This dirty bastard deserves to die anyways because of what he was trying to do to me.
And what's the last sentence on the next page, page 8?
So those three things went in my mind for every guy that I shot.
And you didn't ask her any questions about that at that time because she'd asked for a lawyer.
That's correct.
And you've been trained not to ask anything, just to listen if they ask for a lawyer.
Yes, sir.
She wasn't talking about Mr. Mallory there, was she?
She was speaking generically on all the victims.
Now, on page 8, she said that she had gone through, here she uses the figure 100,000 guys. She didn't start shooting people, or didn't start these 100,000 guys. It seems like didn't find it necessary to kill people unless she got the gun. Let me rephrase that. When did the killing begin, to the best of your knowledge?
With Mr. Mallory.
And how long had she had the gun before the killing began?
Approximately 2 days before.
Did she ever explain to you why 100,000 or 250,000, however many it was, guys, she didn't need to kill, and suddenly, here in less than a year's time, she had to kill suddenly everyone trying to rape her? Did she ever explain that to you?
No, sir.
With regard to her motive, and I'd ask you to look at page 20 of tape 1. And I'd like you to begin right in the middle where she's talking about a time where she says, I don't want her to be involved. Do you see that sentence?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you read there until I ask you to stop?
Yes, sir. I don't want her to be involved because she's not in, she's not guilty. And I'm willing to take the punishment because I'd rather confess that I did it so she wouldn't have to. In other words, she doesn't deserve any punishment. She didn't do anything. I don't know how to express myself on this. I don't want you to think I'm doing it because I love her and I'm trying to protect her or something, because I'm not. I'm doing it because I love her and she's not guilty. She didn't do anything. And I'm not trying to protect her from anything. I'm being very wide open and honest.
Thank you. There was a question raised by Mr. Knowles regarding page 59 of the second tape. And she was talking about Mr. Sims, the one she calls the missionary guy. And you read a little bit for the jury, Mr. Knowles, about, hey, dude, you're going to rape me. But there's a paragraph or two above that where you begin with a question. When you made sure the person was dead and then she answers, would you begin her answer there and go until I ask you to stop? It's page 59 of the second tape.
Yes, sir. She states, I was going, I shot him. Oh, well, yeah. I remember the missionary guy. I shot him once and I thought to myself that I don't really want to do this to you, guy, but I'm going to have to, because you're going to, if you live, if I did let you live, you're going to tell, and who I am and all this other jazz, and I'd probably get caught, And then I asked, so you had to kill him and silence him, basically. Is that what it boiled down to? Ms. Wuornos replies, yeah, but it also wasn't bitterness of what you were doing to me. See what I'm saying?
Okay, thank you. With regard to the confirmation of Mr. Carskadden, now she didn't say it was Carskadden by name, but was there any other person that had been shot 9 times?
No, sir.
And was there any others that she told you she shot him and then reloaded and shot him some more?
No, sir, only him.
And is that the only one that the evidence supported? It was Carskadden's killing?
Yes, sir.
When you asked her the details of the Mallory case, you testified about that several days ago. I'm not going to ask you to go through that any further. But what seemed to be in her story to you as to when they reached a point of disagreement? She gave you several stories, but if you can collate those, do you recall what she said?
Yes, sir. The one was in reference to she was afraid that Mr. Mallory, on the first story, was going to take his money back after she had been paid by Mr. Mallory.
Right. And did she give you another version of that concerning the money? First she said she's afraid he's going to take the money back. Did she give another version of that?
She also stated on the second version was that they had become real good friends during the time that they met, and she usually takes her money up front, but this time she'd make an exception. She was just going to go ahead and have sex with Mr. Mallory.
Do you know which of those versions were true?
No, sir.
Do you know if either one of them are true?
No, sir.
That's just what she's telling you.
That's correct.
As far as the sequence where she said he's starting to get heavy on her, does she describe on page 7 of the second transcript, if you would begin with her words, and she said, okay, so anyway, if you would describe that, please, or read that, please. And read until I ask you to stop. Page 7, under the word okay.
Ms. Wuornos replies, the doors are open, okay. So then he's getting really heavy, on me, and stuff. And I'm going like, now he's getting to where he just wants to just, unzip his pants, not take his pants off or anything. Just start having sex and stuff. And I said, well, why don't you just disrobe or something, I mean, why do you have to have your clothes still on? Then he started getting violent with me, so we're fighting a little bit, and I had my purse right on the passenger floor.
All right. And up above that, did she describe a sequence of him hugging and kissing on her and trying to lay on her?
Yes, sir.
She also told you taking off her clothes and lay down in the front seat, didn't she?
Yes, sir.
Did she say it was a surprise that this man wanted to lay on top of her after she took off her clothes and laid on the front seat?
No, sir.
The point of contention was he didn't want to take his pants off. That was the point of contention, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Were you trying to just listen and let her give you as much detail as she could without prodding or prompting from
Objection,
you?
leading, rephrase the question.
What was your methodology once she began to describe the sequence of events? Did you try to interrupt her otherwise?
No, sir. I let her go step by step. I asked her just to continue. After each time that she would give me a statement in reference to Mr. Mallory, I would ask her what happened next.
And what was the thing? What was her ultimate story? Is what happened next? She describes struggling over the bag with the gun in it.
Yes, sir. The story then stays the same from there, and that she pulls out the weapon, and she advises that she ordered Mr. Mallory to get out of the car. And then she said that, you son of a bitch, I knew you were going to rape me. And Mr. Mallory responded by saying, no, no, I wasn't. No, I wasn't.
And then what she do?
She said, oh, yes, you were. I know you were going to try to rape me. And with that, she fires around and strikes Mr. Mallory on the right side when he's sitting behind the wheel.
Apparently by now he got back in the car. Where was he when she said...
Objection, Your Honor.
Where was she where was he when she said she finally fired the first shot into his body or neck, or wherever she hit him?
Behind the steering wheel.
He was behind the steering wheel?
Yes, sir.
Where was she?
She was outside the car.
And what did she have in her hand?
.22 caliber handgun.
With how many rounds?
9 rounds.
Was it or was it not fully loaded?
Fully loaded.
And then what did she do?
She fired immediately.
She indicated he reacted or made a sound?
Yes, sir. She said that when the bullet struck him, he went, "Ooh."
And then what did they do? Just describe what she told you one more time.
At that time,
Objection has been answered, Your Honor.
Overruled.
At that time, Mr. Mallory crawls out of the car and he shuts the door.
Now, once he shut that door, where was she standing at that point, according to her story?
Still at the passenger side,
And he shut which door?
driver's side door. And that effectively blocked Ms. Wuornos' view of Mr. Mallory as he was on the ground.
Then what did she do?
She ran around to the front of the vehicle.
What happened next?
She then shot Mr. Mallory again.
How many times?
It's a total of 4.
Was he standing with each shot?
No, sir.
How was the last shot delivered, according to her story?
He was lying on the ground.
With regard to the details of where all the automobiles were abandoned, she clearly told you where those automobiles were abandoned, all 7 of them, didn't she?
Yes, sir.
And she clearly told you where 6 of the 7 bodies were left in the state of Florida, didn't she?
Yes, sir.
And those automobiles were all found in those particular places that she described, weren't they?
Yes, sir.
And the bodies likewise were found where she said she left the dead men's bodies,
That's correct.
with the exception of Mr. Sims, who was left somewhere off.
I object to the continual leading.
With the exception of which one?
Mr. Sims.
Tell us which one the body, she couldn't locate the body for us.
It's the one that was left up in Georgia, off of I-95.
Your Honor, may I have a moment to...
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I had intended that Ms. Knowles to basically fragment Officer Horzepa's testimony with regard to the statement and then with regard to 2 exhibit charts that we wanted to introduce, but because of the flow of cross-examination we got there, and it might be easier on all of us if we just go ahead and bring them in. Ms. Knowles indicated expediency is...
Either way, Judge.
Is that it?
No, I haven't. That's the problem, Your Honor. Judge, I think we're going to need a couple of minutes just to compare some notes and... Judge, we're going to need to take up some objections with regard to the exhibit.
Your Honor, there are basically 2 exhibits. The first is indicated or identified as Exhibit 6 times T, and it...
That's it.
All right.
That's it.
And the other, yes, Your Honor, is exhibited, is identified as Exhibit 6 times U. And in each, we believe the witness would testify that with regard to the photographs and the locations, that these are the locations and the bodies recovered in places indicated by Ms. Wuornos. And the other would be an indication of the pattern of crime and locations, etc., corroborated the witness's testimony.
No.
Your Honor, I was not prepared to argue the substance of it, so I don't know if we could speak to the accuracy of everything on the charge. The little predicates have been laid on everything. More significantly, Your Honor admitted this evidence as willing evidence to prove one of the alternative factors. Charts such as these will do exactly what any case on Williams jurisdiction. The objection, Your Honor, is unduly emphasize the Williams evidence texture. Thank you. What I said. Thank you, Judge.
Be human.
That's I was going to get there, but you
I don't generally advise counsel as to what motions to make.
Thank you, Judge.
We've got that out of the way now. You ready to proceed, counsel?
We are, Your Honor.
Ready?
Well, let me, Your Honor, there was one other evidentiary matter. I spoke to Mr. Miller about earlier. He said he wanted to wait till that part of the cross-examination. These are the 2 flashlights that were recovered under the bridge that Ms. Wuornos told him about, as well as the gun.
I don't know if maybe, well, let's just
Sure.
out here. Detective, she identified a box, right? During...
Maybe I can help. I believe you're right. Didn't she indicate that she threw away a couple of flashlights along with the gun under the bridge? And the flashlights were recovered.
I'm deferring to my co-counsel on this one.
He indicated it was the Maroon Grand Prix. I believe in that, Mr. Antonio? That's correct. Thank you.
As I understand it, Your Honor, the flag...
Hopefully something.
It's the nicest thing I've been called all day, Judge.
Certainly by me.
This exhibit, Judge, is not linked to anything through a witness.
Because I can recall Mrs. Barrett if that's necessary. If counsel really wants that, we'll bring Mrs. Barrett back, and we'll link it up for you, counsel.
Keep making that objection, so I guess we'll have to do it.
I could suggest a telephonic deposition of Mrs. Berry, Your Honor. We don't need to bring her back.
That won't be necessary. Mrs. Barrett has indicated a willingness to cooperate with this judge, and we'll bring the witness back and let the jury hear her testimony as to those belonging to Mr. Antonio, if that's what the counsel wants to do.
Is the state representing that the only way they know to link this evidence is through Mrs. Berry?
I think we may be able to.
I'm not asking you any questions. I'm not asking you any questions.
I'm
I
asking
believe I
you.
can link it. I think I can link it. I would ask him if in fact, as one of those admitted, she took these from the Dodger Grand Prix, which is Mr. Antonio. I don't think there's any dispute there.
Yeah, but John, that doesn't link it. That's a...
But if the defendant says that she took it from Mr. Antonio's Grand Prix and threw it on Rose Bay, you don't find linkage, counsel?
Your Honor, the defense's position is if the only way to link it is through Mrs. Berry, we do not need to have Mrs. Berry dragged down here. She's already been here. We would stipulate if that's the case. But we ask Mr. Tanner to represent to the court if that is the only witness the state knows who can do that.
That is correct, Your Honor, except the linkage which you've already suggested, and I think that may be sufficient in and of itself. Yes, Ms. Berry's on one, say you know this one.
Then, Judge, we don't need to drag Mrs. Berry back.
Subject to the ongoing objection as to what it...
Right, all,
Right,
yes,
of course.
Yes, Judge. Thank you, Your Honor.
Now, let me advise the press of something, in case you want to cover other things. I've been informed that we have a demonstration going on outside in regard to abortion or anti-abortion. Our both it will not be any effect on this court because the jury is escorted out the back of the building. Maybe the press might like to get some new refreshments. Or we mentioned, jury been in this. I'll be bringing the jury now.
That's right.
Bringing the jury.
With regard to your conversation with Ms. Wuornos, you had testified several days ago now that she told you where she threw the gun, correct?
That's correct.
All right, did she also indicate she disposed of a couple of flashlights that belonged to Mr. Antonio on the bridge in the same area?
Yes, sir, she advised she threw some flashlights in also.
All right, can speak up a little bit. She advised what?
She threw some flashlight in also.
Okay, the same area she threw the gun?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we had offered flashlights in evidence.
Subject to the argument outside the area, jury has to be received and marked by the proper.
Officer Horzepa did in fact, at any time, Aileen Wuornos ever offer to you a description of an attempted rape of her person by Richard Mountain?
No, sir.
Did she describe to you an attempted rape of her person by any of the men that you killed?
No, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Detective Horzepa, Mr. Tanner asked you about that page 7, where Ms. Wuornos is talking about kissing and hugging and that kind of stuff. Do you recall that?
Which tape, sir?
Second tape. First full paragraph, okay, so anyway, we're in the front seat, he's hugging and kissing on me, that paragraph?
Yes, sir.
And as an aside, you recall indicating to Mr. Tanner that you did not want to interrupt Ms. Wuornos with questions, correct?
That's correct.
And you did interrupt her with questions on this page, such as, now where are you when this is occurring? All right, you're sitting where, and he's sitting where? Okay, he's behind the wheel of the car. Those were questions that you asked Ms. Wuornos, right?
That's correct.
But you did not ask her what she meant by violence, defending herself, drinking, rape, any of those concepts. You did not interrupt her with those questions, right?
No, sir.
Now, in reference to what Mr. Tanner asked you about, the hugging, kissing incident, could you read to us, starting with the line okay, and just fill out what specifically it was that Ms. Wuornos said, what you asked, and what she answered?
How far would you like me to read?
To the bottom of the page.
Bottom of page 7?
To the paragraph ending the passenger floor.
Okay, so anyway, we're in the front seat.
This is Ms. Wuornos, not to interrupt you, but just tell us who it is.
Correct, Ms. Wuornos is speaking here. Okay, so anyway, we're in the front seat. He's hugging and kissing on me and all this shit. So then he starts, pushing me down. And I said, wait a minute, get cool. You don't have to get. Can we continue?
Okay.
Okay. Investigator Munster says, leaving. Okay, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. I then say, I'm sorry. Ms. Wuornos continues, you don't have to get rough, This is, let's have fun. This is for fun, And he's telling me, well, baby, I've been waiting for this for all night long and stuff like that.
You then ask her?
Okay. I then ask her, now where are you when this is occurring? Ms. Wuornos says, in the front seat of the car. I then say, all right, and you're sitting where? Ms. Wuornos replies, on the passenger side. I then say, and he is sitting where? Ms. Wuornos replies, in the driver's seat, going against me.
And then you ask?
Then I state, okay, he's behind the wheel of the car. Ms. Wuornos replies, but he's coming toward me. And I then say, okay.
And then she says?
She then states, the doors are open, okay. So then he's getting really heavy, on me, and stuff. And I'm going like, now he's getting to where he just wants to just, unzip his pants, not take his pants off or anything. Just start having sex and stuff. And I said, well, why don't you just disrobe or something, I mean, why do you have to have your clothes still on? Then he started getting violent with me, so we're fighting a little bit, and I had my purse right on the passenger floor. Continue?
No, just to that point. You, as we indicated a moment ago, you asked her certain questions on this page in reference to where the two of them were in the vehicle, right?
Yes, sir.
You did not ask her what she meant by violent or any of those other things that we've been talking about, pushing down on her, coming towards me, those types of things. You didn't ask her what she meant by that, what she perceived in that,
Ask and
right?
answer. Objection, ask and answer today.
You also testified on questioning by Mr. Tanner with regard to questions and answers asked of Ms. Wuornos at page 10. And if you could start reading to us in the middle of the page, starting with, so he was in the front seat of the car.
Okay. My question is, so he was in the front seat of the car. Ms. Wuornos responds by saying, mm-hmm. I then ask, okay, do you know where that bullet struck? Ms. Wuornos says, God. I then ask, did he react when you shot the gun? Ms. Wuornos question, did I react? My question, did he? Ms. Wuornos responds, yeah. He just went like, ooh, I think I hit him on the side. I then ask, which side? Ms. Wuornos replies, I think it was on this side over here. I then say, the right side of his body? Ms. Wuornos replies, yeah. I then state, okay. Ms. Wuornos then states, okay. Then he proceeded to get out of the car. So he started to get out of the car, and I ran around to the front of the car, and he started coming toward me, and I thought to myself,
You were also asked by Mr. Tanner certain questions regarding when Ms. Wuornos first came in contact with the gun that's in exhibit here. You recall those? You said a couple of days.
yes, sir.
Could you turn to page 9, please, of the interrogation?
Take two.
Take 2.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Wuornos says, in reference to question about the gun, I don't know, man. It might have been about maybe a couple of months ago. Recall that?
Yes, sir.
And on that same page, Ms. Wuornos says, I jumped out of the car because he was physically starting to abuse me.
Yes, sir.
Do you recall who you were talking to her about on that page?
Mr. Mallory?
Did you ever ask Ms. Wuornos whether she had been assaulted, attacked, mistreated, raped prior to Mr. Mallory?
No, sir.
Or Sergeant Munster?
No, sir.
Did you ever ask her what effect her living, the way she lived for years, had on her?
Sorry?
Did you ever ask her about the effects of her background, living on the streets, and what effects those had on her when she was sitting there with you?
No, sir.
And how she viewed the world?
No, sir.
Mr. Tanner asked you certain questions about the composite and Ms. Wuornos, Tyria Moore being seen together. Do you recall those? There was a bloody palm print that was used as evidence in this case. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
What vehicle was that palm print taken from?
Mr. Sims' vehicle.
And the print was matched to Ms. Wuornos, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the blood was matched to Ms. Wuornos, correct?
I don't recall.
You also testified during questioning by Mr. Tanner that in certain instances, Ms. Wuornos was sketchily describing what was going on. That was the word used, sketchily. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
And sketchily implies to me that she needed some focusing. You need to fill in the details, right?
Sketchily to me means that at times she just went ahead and gave short answers, or some that she didn't give a lot, just didn't give a lot of detail for whatever reason.
Right. And then you'd ask follow-up questions.
Yes, sir.
But you asked no follow-up questions about any of the things we've been talking about this afternoon.
Objection, Your Honor.
Mr. Tanner also asked you certain questions about waiting until Ms. Wuornos had had contact with an attorney to proceed, right? All those? I think I asked you this as well, but after an attorney showed up, you did not go back and ask her about self-defense, intoxication, or any of these other things that she had mentioned.
No, sir. I asked her to tell me what happened during the incident.
And in filling in the details, when she was sketchily telling you about the incidents, you did not go back and ask her, what did you mean by violent, so on and so forth, right?
So
Objection asked and answered. Sustained objection.
Thank you, Detective. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Tanner?
During the 3+ hours that you took her statement, she had an opportunity to tell you anything she wanted to.
yes, sir.
You there to listen?
Yes, sir.
Did she tell you she was telling you everything, being open with you?
Yes, sir. Several times.
Did you believe that? That she was saying she was being open with you?
Yes, sir. To a degree.
I'm not asking if she's being open with you. I'm asking, did you believe she was saying that she was being open with you?
No, sir.
What was your final impression with regard to the intent of Aileen Wuornos with regard to what she told you as to why she killed Mr. Mount?
Objection to the witness's impression.
Did she give you words that told you why she killed Mr. Mallory ultimately?
Objection vague, asked and answered.
Sustained.
I think that's correct, Your Honor. I have no further question.
You and Sergeant Munster asked the questions, right?
Yes, sir.
Nothing further.
Your Honor, we have a tape for probably authentication, and you want to do it on the record at this time?
I just assume do it tomorrow, John. The detective needs to bring us back copies of those statements he's promised, so he'll be here anyway.
Counsel, let me ask you about that.